Thank you for the reminder. Okay, so where was I?
It's a merit to be on a spiritual path.
Yes, thank you. So, כלולות בבני אדם, באלו שזכו לעבודת ריבונו. So we're talking about the people that merited the spiritual work, almost like the cleaving to the Creator is a merit, and it's not a given right to just about anybody. Because I guess that's a way to filter the people that have like the true heart of connection, and as opposed to people that are doing it with the wrong intentions or agenda. And so we're talking here about people that have the merit to do the spiritual work and to please the Creator, although the Creator doesn't have a vessel that has a need to be pleased, but it's like, the relationship that is between a parent and a child, right? So the parent in most cases doesn't have, any expectations, from the child to deliver and to promise things because they're not in the age, 5, 6, 7 years old or whatnot. And then when they do something that makes you proud, it's like you're super proud and it fills your heart with so much warmth and love. And, to a very tiny spark degree, this is what the Creator, the relationship that exists between the Creator and us, like imagine like the first step, that our child takes, like the parent is like, wow, it's like the first step, take pictures and videos and let's put it on the wall. It's right. Like it makes us, super proud. And imagine when we overcome our evil inclination, this is how the Creator feels. When we fall and we go into the self-alone and victimness and hurt, etc. It's like, like the child is like tripping and falling and we're worried. As a parent, we're worried. Is he okay? And we're gonna be there. He doesn't want to help because, they're in the age that they want to walk by themselves. And so that's kind of like the interaction that exists between the Creator and us. But anyway, all this to say that באלו שזכו לעבודת ריבונו. You can have people, I know people that have, like pulled their hair, to understand like a certain spiritual concept, and they're just incapable. They're just like so connected to the mind and not to the heart, therefore the soul, that like the soul's understanding is just not connecting. So you might speak to somebody about restriction or imagine about bread of shame. I know some people that, they have come to the center and they've taken classes and then they left and then they came 2 years later, they took Kabbalah 1 again and then they still didn't get it. And they came 5 years later and they took like, and again, like the same trouble was around bread of shame. First of all, because they have bread of shame in their life, but it's like the acceptance of it. It's like the admittance that they are giving bread of shame and they're also receiving bread of shame. So it is really like, like don't take it for granted that we're talking about the concept of bread of shame. Oh yeah, common sense makes sense, right? Like, we can move on and I can even talk to my friends and to my family members at the dinner table and everybody's gonna, oh yeah, I love this concept. That's great. We should do it. We should practice no bread of shame, right? But imagine there are people that are incapable of understanding bread of shame. There are people that are incapable of understanding like the whole concept of the central column. Like, yeah, central column is restriction, but did it occur to any of us that restriction is not about, the central, what is it that you're restricting? You're restricting the central column? No, the central column is the activator. But what is it that you're restricting? So the most obvious that comes to our mind is, oh yeah, we're restricting our left column, our desire to receive for the self alone. Wrong. We're restricting as much the left column as we are to restrict our right column. It's confusing. Isn't the right column all about sharing? Yes, the right column is tuned in. It's the frequency of sharing, but it's not all about sharing. It's because you're sharing, because you're giving is not necessarily restricting. You can overwhelm somebody. You can give with the intention of getting something in return. Restriction is very tricky. So the most obvious, yes, we're restricting the left, but because it is the most sophisticated and the most cunning, the most tricky with the right column, this is where Satan is going to hide the most. So, but down the line, we need to restrict as much the right and the left column, and then we activate the central column that is free will, etc. So it is a merit. We should not take it for granted that we're talking about a concept week after week, and it makes so much sense, and you're relating it to your life, and that's why you keep on coming back and connecting. No, it's not something to take for granted. There are people that are going to listen to the same thing, and it's just going to fly above their head, and they're not going to get it. So it is something to appreciate that we are one of those that zachu lavodat ribono. You have the merit to do the spiritual work. It's a merit. כי מתחילה יש לו נפש, and so mankind, womankind, מתחילה יש לה נפש, they have the level that is the lowest level, that is sustainable for us to breathe, for our heart to beat, and for us to exist. It is the level of nefesh, but the level of nefesh is like minced meat with onion, right? So you are mixing the two for about 3 days, and then you're trying to separate the onion out of the meat. It's basically impossible. They're one and the same. And so because they're one and the same, it's very hard for the soul consciousness, as much as the body consciousness, to distinguish between the right and the wrong, between am I being reactive or am I doing the right thing, to stand up for myself and to say what I feel in my heart, and to tell this person that what they do is not okay. And at the end of the day, the answers are coming to us as we learn about restriction, about birth of shame. If the outcome is win-win, probably what you've done, what you have decided was the right thing to do. But if the outcome is that one was right and one was wrong, or one was stronger and the other one was weaker, then probably whatever you have decided, even if it sounded right to the mind, from the light's perspective, it was probably wrong. V'hu tiken kadosh. And so when a person, and any person that is born, always start over from nefesh. So it doesn't mean that in potential you might be already on the level of ruach or neshama because of your accomplishments from this life, or even more particularly from previous lifetime. We give this example as, like a kid that is born into this world and has incredible gifts from the age of 5, the age of 12. And if you're watching like all these like talent shows, and you see like this kid of like 12 years old or 10 years old playing piano, like like somebody that has spent like 30 or 40 years to train him, is not even close to how the kid. So the same as we have this physical aptitude that is beyond logic, there is also the spiritual accomplishment, whatever it is that you have done, shared, overcome in a previous lifetime, that is not lost. You're bringing this back together with you as you reincarnate. If you are still wondering if you reincarnated or if it is your first time, likely the chance is that it is not your first time, because first timers usually are born on the level of nefesh, which is only caring about themselves and themselves alone. And that is the characteristics, like the structure, energetical structure, or consciousness structure of somebody who has only nefesh. They only tune in with the frequency of whatever is the desire to receive for the self alone, and they have no interest whatsoever into sharing, caring for the world, for the neighbor, even for their spouse or even their children. And so this is likely, like if you see somebody that is that selfish, first of all, don't jump to conclusion, because you were there at some point, and there was somebody that was as spiritual as you are, looking at you and was not judging you maybe 3, 5, 100 lifetimes ago. And so when you see somebody like that with those traits, it is likely a person that has finally decided to come in this human journey and go through hell because this is truly hell for the soul to live in the physical body that only cares when it's not purified, only cares about the self alone. כי מתחילה יש לו נפש, and so from the beginning we have the nefesh, והוא תיקון קדוש, שיתקנו בה בני אדם. And so the role, the job of our physical experience, human experience in this physical body for the soul is to correct the body. We're not correcting the soul, we are correcting the body. Kevan, and correcting the body, this is where is infused the different levels of consciousness of the nefesh, ruach, neshama, because in the depths of the soul, it has all of it in one. We have spoken about when we were teaching the thought of creation, that there is like the first layer or level of existence, which is the Ein Sof, and then there is the Tikkun Olam, the correction, and then there is the Gemara Tikkun. And the endless, the Ein Sof, and the Gemara Tikkun are one and the same, right? Because we're starting from a pure, endless state, and we go back to the endless state, which is after the Tikkun. What is it again that we're correcting? This is what Tikkun means. We're correcting the desire to receive for the self alone that has been infused for whatever reason. We're not going to get into it right now. That has been infused in the body consciousness. So every single time that we are restricting the desire to receive for the self alone, and we're breaking one layer after layer, we're not just helping ourselves, we're helping humanity to rid ourselves of the tikkun olam, of the tikkun, of the correction of the world. כיוון שהאדם בא לתאר במדרגה זו, and so man has come to purify that level, הוא מתקן להתאר עם רוח. And once he has purified that, he has elevated to the level of רוח. והיא מדרגה קדושה השורה על הנפש. And רוח is a level that is purer, that is holier, that is above nefesh, שיתאר בה האדם ההוא שזוכה. So for the man that is deserving, that is meriting, after the accomplishment of his elevation, of his correction, he is deserving to receive the level of ruach. Again, for the level of ruach, we're not out of the woods. We still have a lot of work to do as far as what needs to be corrected in this world. And it says we would not accomplish the tikkun olam, the Gemara tikkun, until the last man is standing and has not corrected what he came to correct. So even if you have accomplished what it is that you have accomplished, basically your role is to help your fellow man or woman and to do their own spiritual work. כיוון שנתעלה בנפש ורוח, ובא ונתקן בעבודה ריבונו כראוי, הוא שורה עליו הנשמה. And so when that individual has elevated in those two levels of nefesh and ruach, ונתקן בעבודה ריבונו כראוי, and doing his spiritual work, he corrected those two levels. שורה עליו הנשמה. It is, the word that is being used is that the neshama, that is the third and the ultimate level that in our living we would accomplish in this physical state, is the level of neshama, is that it descends on you. So it's like you download it. So it's like, imagine you're playing a video game and you beat the boss and then you're receiving this prize. Okay, so this is basically the neshama. The neshama is not something that you're gonna dig the ground and then you're gonna feed. It's like after all the challenges, and this is how they're calling all those levels in video games, like like the challenge is like how intense and how difficult it is going to be. And at the end of each challenge, each stage, you have like a big bad boss, which is basically what our life is made of all sorts of challenges. And at the end of each challenge, there is a big bad boss. And the big bad boss is basically our negative traits, is our temper, is our jealousy, is our judgment, lack of compassion, etc. And each one of them is a big bad boss that we basically need to overcome. And each time that we overcome it, there is like this thing that is downloaded, from the upper worlds, and we elevated, we're receiving like this new armor that is basically, like we receive this protective shield around us, where we are reinstating and reinforcing our Tselem Elokim. The Tselem Elokim, which is basically the shadow of God that we are born with, and we are all, each one of us, were born with a Tselem Elokim that was intact. And it's only when we started to be exposed to small, tiny, tantrums and being upset with our parents, and then we grow up and broken heart and all sorts of things like that, that basically created a diminishing of the intensity and the purity of the Tselem Elokim. But this is basically what we're doing all day long, all week, all year long, all life long. It is to basically reinstate and restore that Tselem Elokim, that shadow of God, so that we can make place and recreate this landing pad for these more elevated stages of us to be allowed, enable them to be downloaded. כיוון שנתעלה בנפש ורוח, הוא בא לתקן בעבודה ריבונו כראוי, הוא שורה עליו הנשמה, שהיא מדרגה עליונה קדושה, and so neshama is even more elevated than the nefesh and the ruach, השולטת על הכל, and it is dominant over all, כדי שיתעטר במדרגה עליונה קדושה, ויהיה אז שלם בכל. And so once the human being, the individual, has achieved successfully those three levels, nefesh, ruach, and neshama, is becoming complete. Shalem mikol הצדדים. He is complete from every direction. לזכות לעולם הבא. And he merits as a result to the world to come. והוא אוהבו של הקדוש ברוך הוא. And he is loving of the creator, כמו שאתה אומר, להנחיל אוהבי יש, מי המה אוהבי אלו הם שנשמה קדושה בהם. This reminds me of any story of near-death experience, of any religion. Once you're up there, there is no religion. This is like the most common denominator that all those stories have, is the amount of endless love that they feel, that they experience, that they want to hang on to. And this is how they define God. So when you say, from the moment that I said the word God, he has so much human religious implication. But for anybody that has ever experienced, and I don't wish you to experience that, but at some point we're gonna have to cross that stage. This is what they all come back with. The amount of tremendous, endless, unexplainable amount of love. And so when the Zohar is talking about that when we elevate to the level of neshama, that's all that we feel. That's all that we feel, in the amount of love that we experience, that we taste, and that we live. Nothing else is important anymore. I mean, we still have things going on. A lot of people have, families and businesses and all sorts of things. But when they come back, everything takes like a whole different angle, a different direction. And so even though they still have like their family and their business, some of them might have just, dropped everything because now they just want to save the world, after realizing that whatever we experience in the upper world, there is no more rivalry, there is no more fighting, there is peace, there is just caring for the other, and everything changes. While we're here in this body consciousness, and we're all not insulting anybody, we're all on the level of nefesh. And if you're not sure that you're on the level of nefesh, and you think that you're on the level of ruach, or that you're already on the level of neshama, let me reassure you that you are on the level of nefesh. And so how do we know that we're on the level of nefesh? Just ask yourself this question, and that question is enough. There are other questions that we can ask going forward. If you answered the first question in the affirmative, after everything that has happened to this day, are you done with being reactive? No more judging, no more taking things personal, no more worries, no more stress, no more anxiety, peace on earth, inner peace. If the answer is yes, we can start asking questions, to determine if you have reached the second level. But I'd like, again, with no insult or judgment involved, assume that all of us are on the level of nefesh still. But I like to call it work in progress. הרי אם כן, הרי כתוב כל אשר נשמת רוח החיים באפיו וגומר, ואם הזוכים לנשמה, הם אוהביו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, למה מתו במבול? And so it is making a reference. I don't know if we're going to go into like the whole thing, but the Zohar is the Zohar, so whatever we can cover is great. And so it says, about the people that have reached tremendous level after the 12 tribes, and if you're looking at the Sfirot are after all those people that have accomplished tremendous level of consciousness, from Moses to King David. And so the Zohar is asking very important question. Ve'im hazochim leneshama. And so if we're talking here about those that deserved and merited the level of neshama, and there are a few of them that reached the level of neshama, and one of them is knowingly Moses that has reached the level of neshama. Hem oavav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he is loving God. Lama metu b'mabul, so why did they die in the flood? Amar lo, ken hu vadai shem oavav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yes, it is true, Rabbi Shimon is answering, that they were loving of the Creator. ולא נשאר מכל אלו שיהיה בהם נשמה קדושה. דהיינו חנוך. And so when you're talking about all those holy people, at the time of the Mabul, at the time of the flood, no one was left. So all those that have lived in the time of the 12 tribes, they have passed by the time of the flood. דהיינו חנוך ירד וכל הצדיקים שהיו יכולים להגן על הארץ שלא תשחט בזכותם. And so it says, up to the time of Hanoch, and whatever tzaddikim, righteous men and women that have lived, and during that time, שהיו יכולים להגן על הארץ, during the time of their living, there couldn't be any chaos, destruction spread upon the world. As long as a righteous lived on the surface of the earth. וזהו שכתוב, כל אשר נשמת רוח החיים באפיו, מכל אשר בחרבה מתו, שבפירוש כמו מתו ונסתלקו מן העולם. But from the moment that they left this world, ולא נשאר מהם מי שיגן על העולם, and from the moment that they left this world, that there was nobody left to protect the world. And so it was saying about the righteous that it was enough for a righteous person to come into a room, that you didn't need those people to study and to do the spiritual work as hard, because it was enough for that spiritual righteous person to come into the room, that it was enough to elevate the consciousness of all the people that were present in the room. And in a similar way, we can understand what Rabbi Shimon is saying, that when a tzaddik or righteous was living, it was enough for his breathing that he was elevating the consciousness of all humanity, but at the same time, he was keeping astray, he was keeping at bay the evil inclination to come and spread the destruction. בוא וראה, הכל הם מדרגות של מדרגות, ונפש, רוח ונשמה הם מדרגות של על מדרגות. זו למעלה מזו, נפש מתחילה, והיא מדרגה התחתונה, כמו שאמרנו, ואחר כך רוח השורה על הנפש ועומד עליה. נשמה היא מדרגה העולה על הכל וברעבה. This is what we have discussed. There is a repetition here where the Zohar describes the different levels of the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, that the nefesh is the lowest, and the ruach is, once it is accomplished, it comes above the nefesh, and once it is perfected, the neshama comes and control over the rest. Anyway, any question?
Yehuda, I have a question. It's
Yes.
Hillary. So it was my understanding that if you're in the nefesh, there's 10 levels in the nefesh that you can before you get to ruach. So as you're working on yourself, then you're working from malchut up through the nefesh to go up. Is that, am I right? Did I understand it right?
You're totally right. Actually, this is the last paragraph that I just read, that within each level, there are levels.
Yes.
And so I know that there is a part of us that wants to feel like, comfort, that we're not on the level of malchut of nefesh. And I'd like to assume actually this one, that we're not on the level of malchut of nefesh, because that would be bad news. But at least, level of yesod, level of netzach, that would be nice, right? And so those are, by the way, indications that we can get when we are, steering the boat of our spiritual work. There are people that are sort of like navigating the spiritual work several times a day or several times a week, I would say. But there is like sort of like a direction for each person. And for each level. So on the level of nefesh, you can have somebody that's mainly dealing with the right column of nefesh, to correct the right column of nefesh before you can ever think about going to the highest level, to the higher level from where he is right now, from malchut to yesod, for example. So malchut is left column, right? And so the same as gvura is left column. And so the indication, at least, I want to know what level I am, right? But I can't tell you which level you are, but you can answer yourself which column of the tree of life are you in that specific level. Why? Because if you are dealing with sharing aspects of restriction, that you have agenda in your sharing, and very often, by the way, we're not aware, so we need somebody to reflect on us, where is our correction, and to be truthfully and honestly open, genuinely open to whatever the feedback is, because, especially when it's around sharing, we don't want to hear that we're sharing with, nobody likes to hear that we're sharing with agenda. Why? Because first of all, it has been like the orchestration of the evil inclination to make us righteous for the last 10 years, that I always share with the right intention, but actually it is seated in very very subtle reasons behind it. But again, if our tests are around sharing, giving, etc., we know that this is what we're dealing with in our level. So if we're on the level of nefesh, likely, and we want to know where it is that we're steering the spiritual work, that's around that. If we are selfish, or we are afraid, or we have all sorts of negative emotions to deal with, etc., that's the left column. So those are giving us like all sorts of indication, at least, like, am I right column, left column, right? It's like all sorts of other spiritual work, like the emotional code that I'm learning about, theta healing that I'm learning about. Sometimes it's difficult to locate where it is. So there are, there are different stages where you learn about, is it on the right side of the body? Is it on the left side of the body? It's incredible, like how it joins, the conversation that we're having right now, because sometimes it is difficult to figure out where we are in our spiritual work, but at least that can give you like a starter So yes, we're on the level of nefesh. I'd like to believe that I'm not on the level of malchut, because on the level of malchut of nefesh, it would strictly be desire to receive for the self alone, which we're not. We have good intentions, we're making effort, we're taking classes, we do charity work, etc., but we're still selfish. But as long as we're on the level of nefesh, that will be the conclusion. We're still selfish, right? But where am I in that level of nefesh? At least guide me. Am I on the right and am I on the left? Don't answer this question by yourself, because the answer would be wrong. Ask somebody who would truthfully answer the question, what is my biggest challenge? Ask a person, what is my biggest challenge? Oh, maybe you should stop being such a victim. Boom, you know that your left column. Oh, stop being so full of agenda and self-righteous with your thinking whatever, and you're going and you share and you just want people to think good about you. Okay, so it's your right column. You're dealing with the correction of your right column. Does it make sense?
Yeah, thank you
yes,
so much.
the short answer, I'm sorry, but the short answer was, yes, there are 10 levels.
Fabulous, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other question?
I was just wondering if you go above Malhut,
Where is your picture?
Oh, really? All right.
Here we are, so much better.
I was just asking if you're above Malhut, then you're no longer using the 5 senses. Does that mean you're using the other sense, which is your sort of intuition, gut feeling?
Your question takes me to so many places. Are we trying to just get high? Is this what?
What? What?
So when we're talking about elevated states in spirituality, it has to do with our reaction. And so if our reaction to physical things, physical people, physical situations, then I'm still on the level well below the level of malchut. When we're starting to elevate and somebody does the same exact thing that I used to get hurt about, and I'm like, that didn't do anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when that occurs, that you realize, oh my gosh, I didn't react. It didn't even affect me. And I remember the times that this person was just in my vicinity and it was getting me already all worked up and all aggravated. And now, not only I can have the person in the room, I can have a drink with this person and I can even laugh with this person. Whoa, my tikkun is over. Well, your tikkun is not exactly over, but where you were on the level of malchut with this situation, you have elevated.
Right.
And when we're talking about elevation, is that it's coming to a place where our negative emotions are not controlling us in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You can still have it like in a memory, but we're not fixated to it anymore.
When do we get
What's
to
your next
prophecy?
question about this?
No,
What's your next question?
Well, because we
there is a
talk
follow-up
about
question.
dreams.
Go ahead.
Yes, there is. No, we talk about dreams and prophecy and all of that stuff. Where does it fit in? It doesn't fit in Malhut, does it?
Well, it's like, like the creator, but also spirits, angels have mysterious ways to communicate with us. On the level of malchut, it would be a hint, it would be a buzz, it would be a ringing, it would be a coincidence, it would be 11:11, it would be like all sorts of things that are like a drop on the level of malchut. When you elevate from the level of malchut, you still have a greater need now and awareness for the existence of those signs and of those creatures and those entities that are there to help us and to communicate with us. And the more awareness and understanding we have and welcoming we have, and the more they can be enabled to do what they came to do. They are here to help us. They are here to guide us. So if we're limited on the level of malchut because of our stookiness, because of our fears, because our self-doubt, so a very good ingredient to enable the upper world and all its creatures to come along and serve us is for us to be happy. Happiness raises consciousness. So if right now I'm not feeling happy, I can fake it. And if I'm faking it and I still don't feel happy, you can always use some extra tools to feel happy. Whatever works, whatever works that's going to make you feel happier, because happiness is what creates a landing pad for more than just a hint. Because they are here, they are present. And there are people that hear them constantly. There are people that see them constantly. There are people that, you know, that have the robotic writing. There are people that read cards. There are people that, you know, that channel. There are people that do all sorts of things in order to communicate with those, with this realm. I would say that even though you have a multitude of spiritual people, it's not because we're spiritual or we're calling ourselves spiritual that we're opened to receive those messages, because sometimes to hear them say, let go of a certain thing, certain relationship, certain thing that I don't want to. I don't want somebody to come and tell me, let this go. It's not good for you. And so even though like 100 human beings have told me to let go, my mind and my ego and my pride is not able to let go. And so imagine if I'm not able to listen to people that care about us, how would I be able to listen to a divine creature that comes and tell me the truth without filters? Because they would use first messengers on Malchut.
Right.
So how can we elevate to a level that is Ruach, that is made with more purity, with bring it on? We all like about bringing on, until it's about bringing it on. Because when it's about bringing it on, why is it not coming on? It's not coming on, and I'm not hearing it because in my current stage, in my current spiritual level, I'm not truly open. I might think that I am open, but I'm not. I'm scared. I'm scared of what might happen if I let go of what is familiar. And majority of the people, and trust me, I'm not talking about you, majority of the people are holding on to what is familiar. And 99% of familiarities or what is familiar is bad for us.
Right. No, makes sense. Thank you.
Good luck. All right, guys, I love you. And let me see, next week, what are we next week? 28, should we have a class on the 28th?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes,
Class on the
let's do
28th
it.
then.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you,
You're
Yehuda.
welcome.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Love
Bye-bye.
you
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.